This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
U.S. completes military evacuation from Afghanistan, marking the end of its longest war. Diarrhea outbreak kills at least 35 people in Nigeria's Borno state. And we bring you the second installment of our special series on wildlife adventures about Africa's national parks. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program. In business news, Egypt to receive $2.8 billion from the IMF to help it recover from coronavirus pandemic fallout. And in sports, Angola and Guinea qualify for FIBA AfroBasket 2021 quarterfinals as hosts Rwanda crash out. The U.S. military has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan to end a brutal 20-year war. The Taliban have now taken full control of the Kabul airport. The withdrawal led to the evacuation of U.S. troops, as well as over 123,000 Americans, foreign nationals and Afghans who had helped the U.S.-led effort. Celebratory gunfire rang out in Kabul in the early hours of Tuesday, and senior Taliban officials hailed the event as a day marking the country's full independence. A Taliban spokesperson has called the pullout historic and says the Taliban want to have good relations with not only the U.S. but also the whole world.
Coming to Afghanistan or have a view of aggression towards our country, they should forget about it. That no Afghans will surrender to force. The way Americans left Afghanistan is a good lesson for the future generation. They were damaged financially. It's a good lesson for everybody else that the nation of Afghan, that it's a historic day for us. We don't have doubt in this. It's a free country. It's a sovereign country.
Well, let's get the latest developments and cross over to Zimaralei Abassin. He's in Kabul for us. Zimaralei, fireworks and celebratory gunfire rang out in Kabul as final flights departed Afghanistan. What is the mood like right now at the airport?
Hello, Beatrice. The mood in Kabul airport is much more normal, and after 18 days of excessive and expedited flights by the US and other foreign missions, this is the first day that there's been no flight, while the Taliban say they will start it soon. On the other hand, they have already taken control of the security measurements all around the Kabul airport, and lots of Taliban special forces with the name Badri Force and also the Victorious Force are inside Kabul airport and taking control and care of Kabul airport.
So the U.S. military has completed its withdrawal after 20 years. What is the latest on the evacuation and the security situation generally around the country, especially in Kabul?
When it comes to Kabul, Kabul is much more secure. People have been talking about much better security. Kabul was exhausted in recent 1 to 2 years, and finally this is a moment of peace in Kabul city. No looting, no slavery, and there were a lot of people doing this in recent years. And also, on the other hand, there were magnet bombs which were exploding every day, and people were complaining, and every day, almost every day, there was casualties because of the magnet bombs. While on the other hand, there were also concerns about the bad behaviors from various warlords and different commanders, and they have been doing their very ill behavior toward people and the recent years. At the same time, the Daesh or ISKP was a concern and still remain a concern, whether there is no report about any incident by the ISKP in Afghanistan and also in Kabul. And the security situation looks much calm, and the people are in their routine life. At the moment I'm talking with you, Kabul is very much windy. There is now raining, and the situation all around the city, because of the confirmation of Taliban that they will have no problem with anybody, no searching, no enmity, no nothing. So some people are getting normal and comfortable, but some others are still fear, and they have concerns because they cannot trust the Taliban as they see.
So the Taliban says it is looking for a peace moving forward now, but what is it saying following the celebrations earlier today? How are they maintaining control of Kabul airport?
Well, as I said, there were two different forces of the Taliban, Badri and Victorious Force, and they've been allocated at Kabul airport. There are planes, the transporting planes, the Chinook one, and much more with vehicles, but the Taliban were told to never touch even one of them and stay still and just take care of the security, and their measurement are increased around Kabul airport, and they say that they are much more comfortable about making the security much better, and they also emphasize that they will bring much more facilities to Kabul airport, and they will ask technical assistance from different countries and neighborhood and also around the world.
So the Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid held a press conference at Kabul airport. Can you fill us in on what he said?
Yes, Taliban spokesperson and now acting minister for Culture and Information Ministry was having a press conference. This press conference held early in the morning around 8 a.m. and Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid appeared between the media, and he was talking about the victorious moment and said this is not only a pride for the Taliban but also for all the people of Afghanistan. While on the other hand, he also said that they want positive and affirmative relationship with the region, with the international society and the United States of America, whether it was a huge history for the Taliban, but according to Zabihullah Mujahid, there is much more to do now. He also asked his forces, the Badri force, where in Kabul airport they were located. Zabihullah Mujahid stood in front of them and told them that be very much tolerant and kind to the people, because the nation has suffered a lot and they need services and much more. So avoid anything that can harm the people, and he was also assuring them that there will be much more better days. Also pointing to the people of Afghanistan, he again emphasized that no one should have any fear, because they are not here to make enmity with anyone else. Zabihullah Mujahid was clearly sending messages for an inclusive government and better relationship with region and international society.
All right, Zumara Lay Abbasin joining us there from Kabul with our update from the Kabul airport. Thank you. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden says he will address the nation Tuesday on the final U.S. exit from Afghanistan. Kate Fisher has more from Washington, D.C.
President Joe Biden is due to address the American people later on today in a televised address, but he did issue a short written statement on Monday after those final flights out of Kabul, and he said that the past 17 days have seen troops execute the largest airlift in US history, and he said that the decision to leave Afghanistan by August the 31st was a unanimous recommendation of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and commanders on the ground. And he said that ending the military mission was the best way to protect the lives of US troops. And he said that the US would lead continued coordination to ensure safe passage for people to leave Afghanistan if they wanted to, and that the US would hold the Taliban to its commitments on the safe passage of those people. But questions are being raised about how the administration can actually do that, given the fact that they no longer have a military presence or a diplomatic presence in Afghanistan. But Secretary of State Antony Blinken also spoke yesterday, Monday, here in Washington, and he said that despite all that, the US would still be able to operate effectively.
So here's our plan for the days and weeks ahead. First, we built a new team to help lead this new mission. As of today, we've suspended our diplomatic presence in Kabul and transferred our operations to Doha, Qatar, which will soon be formally notified to Congress. Given the uncertain security environment and political situation in Afghanistan, it was the prudent step to take.
Well, let's get more analysis on this developing story. Tariq Fahadi is joining me now from Geneva. He's an Afghan foreign relations expert. Tariq, thank you for joining us on the program. So what is the likely impact of the withdrawal of the US and its allies from Afghanistan after 20 years?
Thank you for inviting me. The first impact is as an economic crisis in Afghanistan, because the World Food Program has said that 18 million Afghans are don't have enough to eat, and 9 million children are at risk of malnutrition in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a landlocked country. It imports some of its food. And right now, Afghanistan's reserves, central bank reserves, are frozen in the United States. And the Taliban have come to power, but the banks are closed, the prices are going up, and families don't have jobs, the NGOs have left, and there is an acute financial crisis which could turn into a humanitarian crisis with prices going up and scarcity of what to eat in Afghanistan.
But the allies and the US have been there for 20 years, Tariq. How was this not dealt with before?
Everything fell on its face, basically. Everything fell on the ground. The army fell on the ground. The NGOs that the Western countries had put together left. In fact, the Western countries said, if you worked with an NGO that dealt with us, we will take you out. Okay, 100,000 people have been able to leave, but 36 million Afghans are left in Afghanistan, and they are at risk of humanitarian crisis. If there is a humanitarian crisis, people will have to leave Afghanistan from hunger, and this will create more refugees and indeed more problems for the West, because most people who leave would like to go towards Europe.
So how prepared are the Taliban to manage the political and security situations in the country?
They are prepared to manage the security situation because they were a fighting force. They are not prepared to manage the political situation completely, because the Taliban have to come out of themselves and accept non-Taliban Afghans in governance. Afghanistan is a country with several ethnies and sects of religion. And the women that in the negotiating team of the Taliban, we have never seen any woman. But now, if we want to have a government that's acceptable to most countries in the world, Taliban have to accept, to come out of self and accept others in governance. This seems strange because they have a military victory, and it seems strange now to gift positions of powers to others who are not in the fight with them. But for governance, there are other realities. For the fighting, they had other realities. To govern in Afghanistan, you have to bring people from separate parts of Afghanistan, from different languages and background, and you have to bring the women. And then they can make a case with all the international community to keep the flow of humanitarian aid open.
Tariq Fahadi joining us there via Skype from Geneva. Thank you. Well, while US troops have met the deadline for withdrawal, access for humanitarian and aid remains a challenge. The UN Security Council has passed a resolution calling for unhindered access for humanitarian agencies. It was passed with 13 votes and 2 abstentions. It has also asked the Taliban to allow Afghans to travel abroad. In a previous statement, the group spokesperson urged skilled Afghans not to leave the country. The resolution has also condemned the August 26th attack on the Kabul airport. The terror group ISKP claimed responsibility for that attack, which killed dozens. The group, which operates in Afghanistan, is linked to ISIL.
The Security Council expects the Taliban to live up to its commitment to facilitate safe passage for Afghans and foreign nationals who want to leave Afghanistan, whether it's today, tomorrow, or after August 31st. Last week's horrific attack in Kabul demonstrated the very real threat that terrorist groups like ISISK pose. President Biden has made clear that we will do what's necessary to defend our security and our people.
During the negotiations, we underscored the unacceptability of the negative impact of evacuating qualified Afghans, especially for the Afghan economy. Under the conditions of this brain drain, the country will not be able to achieve the sustainable development goals. These elements that are important for the Afghan people were not reflected in the text of the resolution.
The recent chaos in Afghanistan is directly related to the hasty and disorderly withdrawal of foreign troops. We hope that relevant countries will realize the fact that withdrawal is not the end of responsibility, but the beginning of reflection and correction. Relevant countries should learn the lessons, truly respect the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Afghanistan, and genuinely respect the right of the Afghan people to determine their future.
The war in Afghanistan has cost $2 trillion and a great number of lives. CGTN anchor Wang Huan gives his take on the issue.
Afghanistan has become the biggest foreign policy miscalculation for Joe Biden since he took office. It is an embarrassment, a fiasco. See how quickly the Taliban gained control since Joe Biden announced a complete U.S. troop withdrawal in April? In a war or a competition, you don't tell your opponent when you will quit. By doing that, you give up an advantage called deterrence, and in effect, you surrender. Biden did all that in a highly publicized television address, and since then, he mistakenly believed that a Taliban takeover was not likely. This is Joe Biden just a month ago. Listen.
Is the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped, as well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force, against something like 75,000 Taliban.
Secondly, to pull out of Afghanistan so suddenly amid the worsening security situation is the epitome of American irresponsibility. Biden abandoned Afghanistan, pure and simple. Since taking office, Biden and the U.S. security establishment has made China America's rival #1, and the rise of China its biggest national security threat. Yeah, China, a country that has never sent soldiers to American soil, is now a bigger existential risk than Iraq or Afghanistan. I get it. There cannot be a near-peer competitor to the U.S., a close rival that hails from a vastly different political or cultural system that's uniquely Asian. But when the U.S. elites, the security establishment, sober up a bit, they should see that in Afghanistan, hundreds of civilians and security forces die each month as the Taliban clash with government forces. In total, over 100,000 Afghan civilians and soldiers have been killed or injured since the U.S. invasion. Surrendering amid the current chaos creates an image of America being reckless, selfish, and unreliable, a perception that may linger for years, even decades to come. Ryan Crocker, former U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, said this: "We just have a lack of strategic patience as a nation and as a government. Sadly, in the region, our adversaries have come to count on us not staying the course." Plus, does might make right? The U.S. is the strongest military on earth, we all know that, but does that entitle Washington to go around the world subverting regimes they don't like, propping up governments they consider friendly, exporting systems of government, and punishing countries or individuals for violating U.S. laws and standards? Another lesson: peacemaking and peace building are two different things. The U.S. toppled the Taliban government in a matter of months, but nation building proved to be much more complicated. It is about setting up rule of law institutions, education and schools, a civil society, infrastructure, and public services that enable growth. While at it, one must take into account Afghanistan's unique social, cultural, religious, and tribal fabrics. Apparently, the U.S. failed to work inside Afghanistan's political and cultural dynamics. Prominent Afghans, such as scholar Omar Sadr, said the entire U.S. process of state building was, quote-unquote, based not on local needs and circumstances, but on a model that was brought here from outside, a point echoed by many American officials.
Afghanistan, like most countries, doesn't want to see foreigners on their soil. And so for many Afghan men and women, the U.S. being there was a problem. And that enabled the Taliban to easily paint the government as a government of puppets. And you'll know your own history as an Afghan as having defeated multiple different occupations. So this is something that's a part of identity. It's not something that can be easily removed.
From Vietnam to Libya, from Iraq to Afghanistan, a painful lesson is that U.S. interventionism has its limits. And if this interventionism is mingled with a missionary fervor to convert and the ideological bias to proselytize, things could get a lot worse.
Well, UNICEF representative in Afghanistan, Harvey Delis, says there is a child protection crisis in the country. Speaking to reporters through a video link from Kabul, Delis also said children in Afghanistan are living in communities that are running out of water because of the drought. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa tells us more.
According to UNICEF, children in Afghanistan are missing life-saving vaccines such as polio. The UN agency says many children are malnourished, weak, and lie helplessly in hospital beds across the country. UNICEF says that despite the situation in Afghanistan, it's still doing its best to ensure these children get the assistance they need.
It is for each of every one of these children that UNICEF is staying. We have been in Afghanistan for 65 years, and we are here to deliver critical aid and enable services for those most in need. We are doing this through our 5 zonal offices nationwide and our network of partners from community elders, women's groups, social extenders, local NGOs and private companies to transport of critical supplies.
UNICEF also says that girls in Afghanistan should be allowed to have an education.
When it comes to girls' education, let me be clear. UNICEF has always and will always be advocating for all girls in Afghanistan, including those with disabilities. We will advocate for them to attend primary and secondary school and go to university if they choose so. And while vulnerable families share with UNICEF what basic items and services they need, we are concerned about headlines around international donors cutting or opposing aid to the country, not just for UNICEF, but for other aid agencies as well.
The agency is also concerned about the safety and security needed to deliver programs throughout Afghanistan, especially for the agency's female national staff and social workers.
The main challenges we have right now is actually mobilizing the resources that we need to respond to the needs of children. The second key challenges we have is that there is lack of cash inside the country, in the interior of the country and in Kabul. And many of our programs require cash. And we hope that the banking system will be able to operate very quickly.
UNICEF is also worried about recent reports about unaccompanied children across the country. The agency has emphasized the need for people to observe and protect children's rights. Wilkista Nyabwa, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. Diarrhea outbreak kills at least 35 people in Nigeria's Borno state. And the United Nations warns of a severe humanitarian crisis in Madagascar.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
An outbreak of diarrhea has killed at least 35 people in Nigeria. Around 150 people have been hospitalized in Gwoza town, located in the northern Borno state. This is according to the chairperson of the Gwoza local government area, Ibrahim Bukar. He added that the water supply in the community has been polluted by corpses, chemicals and waste. Borno state has for years faced multiple attacks from Boko Haram. Bukar says the attacks have weakened the health infrastructure in the area. Meanwhile, authorities in Nigeria's Borno state have pardoned over 3,000 terrorists as part of efforts to restore peace in the troubled region. The country has been battling an insurgency for 12 years. The UN reports that more than 30,000 people have been killed in attacks, while more than 2 million people have been displaced. Reporting from Nigeria's capital, Abuja, let's bring you Philly Haza.
The Borno state government confirmed that all 3,000 insurgents who laid down their arms and surrendered to the Nigerian military were members of the Boko Haram sect. The state governor, Babangana Zulum, who presided over a meeting with all the repentant members and other top government officials, says that apart from the 3,000 ex-terrorists currently in the custody of the government, an additional 900 have surrendered to the Cameroonian forces. Cameroon borders Nigeria and has been jointly battling the insurgents for over a decade, with Borno State as the epicenter. Governor Zulum says the government is working on various programs geared towards dealing with the repentant insurgents with caution and within the law. He emphasized the need for proper data capturing about the Boko Haram insurgents before releasing them into society. The leaders at the meeting also agreed to work towards establishing a world-class de-radicalization and rehabilitation center in Borno State to facilitate work with repentant terrorists and prevent them from being recruited back into insurgent groups. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Well, let's return to Afghanistan for the moment, where we're looking at the war in Afghanistan, which has now cost $2 trillion and a great number of lives. Well, let's cross over to CGTN's Nawi Jabakil in London, Ross Cullen in Paris, and Daniel Kublai Khan on the Chaman-Spin-Boldak border. Now, if I may start off with you, where are the Afghan evacuees in the UK, and what are their future resettlement plans?
Well, Beatrice, the majority of them coming here to London, but this is a responsibility that the UK is hoping to share around the country. Hundreds of them arriving, for example, in Birmingham in the East Midlands, and the UK government wants other countries, aside from England, to take them in, like Scotland and Wales as well. In total, the plan is to bring 20,000 Afghan refugees here over the next few years, the government says, including 5,000 in the first year of this scheme. Now, that's a separate plan to the Afghan staff who helped the war effort there in the last 20 years. So this is an additional 20,000 refugees being brought here. And it follows a similar scheme for Syrian refugees earlier in the last decade, which the UK government says was a huge success. But in terms of where they're going, there are some reports of some skepticism, if you like, from certain parts of the country who may not want to take in these refugees. According to the Daily Telegraph, a leading newspaper here in the UK, it said that up to 10% of the 330 or so councils in England offered to take in Afghan refugees actually declined the chance to do so. Now, the government says that's not the case. The real figure is close to 5%, but it does signify some sort of skepticism, if you like, some apprehension with taking in refugees in certain parts of the UK. What's happened really in the last few months has seen public opinion shift, if you like, towards a bit more of a welcoming tone towards Afghan refugees, partly because some feel that the UK may have some responsibility for what's gone wrong in Afghanistan, given that it was involved in that US-led coalition coalition for up to 20 years. But really, the issue of refugees, the issue of asylum, the issue of immigration, they are thorny subjects here in the UK. They were key subjects, according to many critics, of the Brexit debate. So there has been a bit of a shift in recent weeks in terms of what the UK public opinion is. But moving forward, the government says that there are still Afghans there that it wants to get out, up to 1,000 so far since the middle of August in this 2-week evacuation program we've seen from around the world. The UK says it's taken out 15,000 people on flights. But as was warned, as has happened with the United States, the UK also saying some people have been left behind. A few hundred British nationals, largely families, the Foreign Secretary said today, but up to 1,000 in total that have been left behind. And I think the immediate priority is going to be trying to get those people out. But there is still a lot of uncertainty, particularly with those scenes that we saw earlier on in the show with the shots firing out, with the Taliban claiming Afghanistan has regained full independence. It's going to be a bit of a challenge diplomatically, if you like, for Britain to get the remaining people it wants to get out of Afghanistan out of the country.
Ross Cullen, indeed the issue of refugees, the issue of immigration have been key issues in Europe, particularly as a result of the migration across the Mediterranean. So how will the arrival of refugees and migrants from Afghanistan impact migration policies within the European Union?
Well, in his address to the nation on the 16th of August, the French President Emmanuel Macron discussing the strategy in Afghanistan, how the French authorities are going to be airlifting people, French citizens and Afghan citizens from Kabul back to France. He mentioned that he was going to try to find common ground with outgoing German Chancellor Angela Merkel for an EU initiative to deal with what he described as irregular migrant flows. Now, these comments were picked up by the press, by the left and by the right, and he was criticised for that language. But the French president stood by those comments and said that you need to listen to my entire speech. You need to read the entire 11-minute transcript to get a better understanding of the overall position he was looking for. And we have seen in Europe in the past, 6 years ago, the migrant crisis in 2015, that was provoked by the war in Syria for those migrants who were coming from the Middle East, the refugee displacement camps travelling through Lebanon, through Turkey, and also those people coming from West Africa as well, up through the North Africa route into Libya, into Tunisia, trying to get to dinghies to get to Europe. We saw at that point the EU welcoming Angela Merkel signing off on more than 1 million asylum applications into Germany. But the geopolitical situation is different this time. These people who have been airlifted from Afghanistan to Europe have been on official flights by European nations. There has been a deliberate action of airlifting people, evacuating people from Afghanistan into Europe to be assimilated into those European communities, and there has been more alignment. We have seen statements from the EU Chief Foreign Affairs Representative Josep Borrell, and he has also been travelling to Spain in recent days, where there are going to be special hubs set up at airports, air bases in the Andalusia southern region of Spain to welcome migrants and refugees who have been travelling from Afghanistan to Europe. So there is more alignment this time around when it comes to the overall picture of looking after these people who've been airlifted from Afghanistan into Europe.
Daniel, as Ross Cullen has pointed out, the geopolitics is different with the Afghan situation. So how is Pakistan dealing with an influx of Afghan refugees, and how do you see the future relations between Pakistan and the Taliban, considering the history between the two neighbors?
Well, yes, we know that Pakistan hosts over 3 million Afghan refugees, and half of them are unregistered. Since the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, where I am at this point in time, which is the Chaman border, and it is one of the two key border crossings. One is the Torkham, and this is Chaman. And here, situation is quite tense at this point in time. I am seeing a lot of influx of people coming in. Most of them are holding documents, valid visas, as well as refugee cards. We are looking at about 10 to 15,000 people crossing into Pakistan today, and the same number almost is going back to Afghanistan, and managed to speak to a couple of families who have arrived, and they're saying that to be very honest, they're quite scared, and they're saying that we don't know whether the Taliban are going to stick to their word of providing them with security and safety. And most of them are they belong to the Hazara Shia community, a minority in Afghanistan, which have been a target in the past 20 years from now. They were the main target of the Taliban. But I've talked to those people, and they're saying that they're going to come into Pakistan. They're going to see how things unfold in the next 6 months or 1 year, and then they will decide whether they want to go back or not. But this also comes at a time when only last week I was at the Torkham border in the northwest, which is about 900 kilometers from here. The situation at that border point was comparatively very calm. There were no people coming in or going out. And also I'm seeing a lot of trade happening here. I've spoken to the officials, and they're saying that it had gone down 2 weeks ago, but at this point in time, about 200 shipment containers packed up on these trucks are ready to roll into Afghanistan. Yes.
All right, Daniel Kublai Khan on the Spain-Baltic border, Ross Cullen in Paris, and Nawid Jabakil in London. To you all, thank you. Madagascar has been hit by one of the worst droughts in the region in 40 years, affecting over 1 million people. The United Nations now warns that the country is facing a severe humanitarian crisis that needs urgent attention. It says the drought has gone on for longer than expected in the country, and that funds received so far are not enough to cover current and future needs of those affected. Most areas in the south of Madagascar are already in a nutritional emergency, with women and children affected the most. Since late last year, the World Food Programme has been working closely with the Malagasy government and other partners to address severe hunger in the country.
We, along with our partners on the ground, are gravely concerned about the deteriorating humanitarian situation in the Grand Sud, devastating combination of a severe drought, the worst in 40 years, sandstorms, pest infestations have led to crop losses of up to 60%. People have resorted to eating locust, raw red cactus fruits, or wild leaves. More than 1.14 million people are severely food insecure in that area of Madagascar. The funding is urgently needed to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe as we approach the October to April lean season. Our humanitarian colleagues are asking for $75 million before the end of this year to scale up the response. $75 million. It's not a lot of money in the scope of things.
Well, let's get the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 a year and a half ago, travel has become increasingly difficult and expensive for many passengers, especially those coming from Africa. High infection rates, slow vaccination programs, and restrictions affecting red list countries have made traveling almost impossible for some. CGTN's Julie Shire takes a look at how difficult traveling has become recently.
South Africans were the most restricted travelers in the world during the first quarter of 2021. But still today, South Africa remains on the red list for many countries. As you can see behind me, check-in tills at Cape Town International Airport remain fairly empty.
Before the pandemic, it was very freely. You could travel anywhere without worrying the day before. Now you have to do all the planning. It's a mission to travel. I think the price is a problem, and yes, it will affect many people. They will think twice before they travel, unfortunately.
A little bit ostracized here in Cape Town because the rules for sort of a red state is quite difficult, and it's hard to keep up with it because it changes on a daily basis. So all of us have pretty much just given up on traveling until all of this blows over.
South Africa's vaccination program was slow to start, but as it picks up with over 12 million people vaccinated, with only 6 million of them having had the second dose, travel experts are asking for restrictions to be scrapped.
I think more about travel restrictions that make sense a lot of the time, because sometimes they don't quite make sense and they're quite complex. And the difficulty is that from country to country, they differ. There's no sort of uniform restriction in place.
Travel restrictions are difficult to understand and they are constantly changing. But the real question is, are they effective and do they prevent further spread of the virus?
The consensus is that coronavirus is here to stay. The question is, what is the point? Unless you're going to an island that's never seen coronavirus, I don't think there's much point in this tightening these flight restrictions. I think it's silly administrative rules, to be quite honest. I can't see the bigger public health benefit.
But there's some good news for those looking to travel soon, with more countries lifting restrictions for fully vaccinated South Africans.
The fact that we are allowed to get vaccinated now is very positive. We are very excited, I think, especially the younger generation. And the fact that countries are now opening up for us, people who are vaccinated fully, to go over without necessarily having the test and without having to quarantine for a week is definitely positive for us as travellers.
We are always advocating as an industry that with vaccination rollouts that are taking place, that testing will become a thing of the past, that quarantine or isolation will become a thing of the past, and that's the hope that we have.
COVID-19 will continue to impact travel for a long time to come, and it might only be possible for those who have been vaccinated or can afford tests. Julie Shara, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa. The Egyptian government has this week enforced a law that regulates the parking of cars along public streets, including requiring drivers to pay more for parking spaces. The new charges include a $20 monthly fee levied on passenger vehicles for overnight stays, even when a vehicle is parked next to a residential building. Here is Adel Mahroui with more details.
Mohammed Abdel Hamid is monitoring the street looking for clients. This week he has become an officially registered parking valet. His job is to help people find a parking spot at a cost of 70 US cents a day.
I learned that the municipality is holding auctions for parking spaces. I followed the auction online to see which company would win. Then I went to the national company which earned the parking rights and asked to apply for a parking job. I filled a clear criminal record form, my national ID and graduation certificate, and I began work immediately.
Egypt has more than 12 million vehicles, yet decades of negligence by some public officials have seen many residential buildings constructed without garages for parking vehicles. As cities got more crowded, parking spots became rare.
We have a crisis in the number of public garages in the major cities. They are usually counted on the fingers of one hand. The consequence is that cars fill the streets. That made street valets abuse the situation, and the complaints against them were piling up. That drove the state to regulate parking. All that we are seeing now is just a trial phase to evaluate the new parking system before it's applied all over the country.
It is an irritating issue and useless. I'm not going to pay them, and I don't think any one of my friends will. We've been already fighting with the abuse of the street valet who force us to pay in public areas. Now these abusers will become licensed. I can't find parking spots around my home, so I pay monthly money to park my car. I shouldn't be paying everywhere I go.
The new parking system suggests introducing a monthly tariff of $20 US a month for overnight stays and up to $2 for a 24-hour parking ticket.
I don't mind the new tariffs. We pay anyway wherever we park, and we pay more than these prices. A monthly subscription in a garage is for $60, so why not pay $20 and have my car right next to my house? Why not give the government money and they take care of my car, especially given that it's not a significant sum of money?
Parking in public areas and near attractions needs to be regulated because we suffer from street valleys. But next to my home, I have a right to park for free. The government must ensure that contractors build garages under the building, and if they allow them not to, the government must provide slots next to the house. $20 is a lot of money.
Ramadan Abdullah is a non-licensed street valet. He manages parking in this street without a permit from the government. He says the new parking system threatens his livelihood.
This will greatly impact my life. This is my only job, my prime source of income. Now instead of running my own affairs, I'll be working for someone else. That's tough. The municipality will have to cut my income or they'll make me pay monthly rent for a parking area which will be hard. I barely pay my house expenses. I can't afford to pay them as well.
To become registered, a valet needs to pay the government up to $200 a month for a small parking area of up to 30 slots. Valets who charge motorists more money than officially stipulated could face $350 in fines. They are also not allowed to recharge vehicles for multiple parking within the same day at the same location. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And it's time to take a look at the day's business news. Here's what's ahead. Egypt to receive $2.8 billion from the IMF for recovery efforts from the fallout caused by the coronavirus pandemic. And Mozambique's Total Energies LNG project expected to resume within 18 months.
It's taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
And we are now taking you back to Kabul, where the Taliban are holding another press conference at the Afghan national television station. Let's listen in.
I want to give you the good news that your country is free of invaders for the third time. This historical pride is for all of us, and it will be with us until doomsday. A point came into my mind. We got the freedom on 31st of August, and it is a huge pride for us. They began propaganda against us, but I want to ensure you that. But I want to assure you all that Afghanistan will develop much more than the 20 years invasion. Man is a word that never removes. Nine is a lucky number for Afghanistan. Remember this. 7 plus 2 is equal to 9. 9 multiplied by 4 is 36. This change, this revolution, and this freedom will last for long. It will be for all time. Allah have given us this victory when the high-rank official of Taliban, Mullah Brother, has signed contract with Americans in Doha. One reason for such thing is that when Prophet of God had an agreement with the pagans of Makkah, it was not in favor of Muslims, but it proved to be, in short term, it was not in favor of Muslims, but in long term, it was in favor of Muslims. The delegation from the people of Makkah said they don't know any God with the name of Rahman and Rahim. He told the Prophet that we don't accept you, we don't know you as Prophet of God. Hazrat Ali said that I cannot accept this. We are the followers of Muhammad Prophet, peace be upon him, and whatever he does, we follow this. And this also proved to be useful for us. After this, no country will interfere in Afghanistan. All articles in Doha Agreement are in favor of the bravery, greatness of Afghans. During the agreement of Doha, God has sent verses on Prophet that you will be victorious. So the Prophet was victorious from the day when the Hudaybiyah agreement was signed. With this victory, Afghanistan got its most important and the best security. With this victory, the God has given to the nation a huge gift, a gift of peace. Nobody could believe that all areas from Wakhan to Torgunde, from Bulda to Torkham, in fact from east to west, from north to east, they were conquered by the Taliban, by the Mujahideen. And it is a huge gift from Allah, from Allah the greatest, to the nation, that entire nation in each part of the country now have full peace, full security. Now you can move to every part of the country. This is your free country. You can go anywhere. The third thing, the war between Afghans was made because of the foreign invaders, and this has stopped. This kind of brotherhood, this kind of forgiveness, this is unseen. Everybody is forgiven.
Islamic Emirate has said they have amnesty for all, for everybody, from the foreign government, from the former government. People of Makkah were afraid of Muhammad, peace be upon him. But he entered, when he victored, when he went inside as a conqueror, as a victor, the people of Makkah told him, what will you do with now us? And they forgave him all. He announced to the people that after this, everybody of you is in peace. When Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan entered to Afghanistan, it has told it's all those who used to critique us, who used to fight against us, who used to propaganda against us, they were told that whatever you have done in the past, whatever wrong propaganda you have done, you are forgiven, you are in peace, and nobody is going to tell you anything. May Allah help us reconstruct this country. And may Allah make us more powerful to build the country. 4 types of people live in Afghanistan. One were those who were part of the 20-year jihad and were ready for any type of sacrifice. They are the most respected people because they have fight for the freedom. Second were the people who have shared their food with the Mujahideen, who gave place to Mujahideen, to the Taliban. These are the people whom we respect and who have supported us. So the people who used to live in Afghanistan, all of them are forgiven as per the followings of Muhammad, peace be upon him. And fourth are the people who left the country and they want to make Afghanistan get into another invasion, another problem. And we have the announcement for them to get back to their home. Let's make the country. You are all forgiven. Last night, last soldier of the U.S. invaders left. And after they left, now the free nation, the free people under Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. They don't have any invaders, whether on the land or on the air of the country. Everything will be done transparently. Policies of Islamic Emirates are certain to all 6 neighbors of our country. We will have good relations with them, friendly, brotherly relations with them. We don't want war. And neither we will have any role in others' internal affairs. I want to ensure all our neighbor countries that we will not have anything to do with your internal affairs. We don't want the interference of other countries. What Russia did along with their allies, what the others along with their 48 allies did, what happened to them. People of Afghanistan are peace lovers, and the land of Afghanistan will never be used against any other country, especially the neighbors. We want to ensure them again that they won't have any problem from us. If our neighbors want good Afghanistan, a well-constructed Afghanistan, Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is the best. This is our policy. Our faith will be incomplete until all our neighbors aren't safe because of us. And this is what is told us by our teachers. And we also want our neighbors to have good relations and mutual respect towards us. Afghans, the Islamic Emirate, in specific in the Afghan nation in general, never did have in anybody's internal affairs. They did not interfere, and they will never neither do. We want to kill the invaders as well. That if the invaders who came here to kill Afghans, to take them to prisons, even we want to tell them, if you take your interferences from our affairs, we still want to have affairs with you, good political affairs with you. Those who left Afghanistan, we want to tell them, you please come back. The world needs to have good relations with Afghanistan, and so does Afghanistan. Some wanted to make Afghanistan Syria, and they had the plans to do so, but that couldn't do. The brave nation of Afghanistan didn't let that happen. They used to say that if we leave, Afghanistan will be separated into different pieces. Alhamdulillah, with the grace of God, nothing happened, and the Afghan nation didn't let that happen. We used to have victories from every side of Afghanistan, from north, from south, from east, from west. I want to tell the nation that your rulers, your high-ranked officials will be the ones who serve for you, who will do the service for you people. They will not be the rulers. They will be the one who serves for you. We will keep, we want to keep ourselves away from the bad prayers of people. We will help both the ones who are cruel and the ones who are nice. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
از جناب محترم شیخ شهاب الدین دلاور عضو دفتر سیاسی و هیئت مذاکره کننده امارت اسلامی افغانستان سپاسگزاریم.
Thank you, Mr. Shahabuddin Dilawar, the member of Political Commission and the Peace Delegation in Doha.
وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما صدق الله مولانا العظيم. دقیقاً 6 ماه پیش بود در سمیناری که به مناسبت پیمان پایان اشغال یا پیمان 10 هود که خود آن هم جایگاه ویژه در تاریخ آزادی و آزادگی کشور دارد، در آن سمینار در پایان مقاله خود اشعار را از محمد اقبال لاهوری رحمه الله خوانده بودم.
Exactly 6 months ago, I said these poets from Allama Iqbal in a seminar.
دیدم از روزن دیوار زندان شما حلقه گرد من زنید ای پیکران آب و گل حلقه گرد من زنید ای پیکران آب و گل آتشی در سینه دارم از نیاکان شما یقین داشتم زنجیرها میشکند
I was sure that the slavery will be over. We have faith on God and we did have and we will have.
در خطه افغانستان درخشیده است.
Afghanistan is a free country. The light of freedom has lit in the country.
آزاده ستم دیده خود از صمیم قلب تبریک میگویم.
I want to congratulate on this occasion to our great nation.
تصویر کوتاه و کوچک از زحمات، قربانی‌ها و فداکاری‌های ملت مجاهد و مجاهد پرور خود که در این 20 سال مبارزه متقبل شدند پیش کنم.
I would like to shed light on the 20 years of freedom fight of this great mujahid, the ones who are against the invaders, India lovers in this entire nation.
درخشان تاریخ آزادگی هست. ملت ما سزاوار این آزادی بودند و هستند.
Our nation deserves this freedom and they do.
ثابت می سازد که ملت مسلمان افغان زمین را نمی توان برای همیشه مسخر کرد.
The history has proved that no invader can have invasion of Afghanistan for long time.
ضمن اینکه به بیگانگان خاطر نشان بسازم که بار دیگر در فکر تسخیر افغانستان نباشند، چون این هزینه بالای و سنگینی دارد و شاید به نابودی آنها تمام شود. بسیار به افتخار میگویم که ما افغانها یک بودیم و باز هم یک شدیم.
I want to tell the invaders they shall not try to think of invasion of Afghanistan again. And I would like to tell them that we were one nation in we will, and this is what we prove to the world.
ما افغانها می توانیم با هم بسازیم.
We Afghans are the ones who can construct the country by being united.
اما ما سر از امروز باید نشان بدهیم که ملت افغانستان پس از امروز در جبهه واحد و متحد قرار دارد.
I want to let the world know that the nation of Afghanistan is now in one frame.
آزاد و صمیمی با هم زندگی نمایند.
And the Afghans, we all Afghans are going to live in an atmosphere, in a situation of being united in a free atmosphere, peaceful atmosphere.
به شمول کشورهای همسایه لذت شیرین همسایگی خوب را نچشیدند.
We want to have good relations with our neighbors.
آینده اسلامی افغانستان این فلسفه را سفسطه ثابت خواهد کرد که منفعت خود را باید در زیان دیگران جست. نه خیر.
The future Islamic government of Afghanistan will prove that our prophet will be in profit of others, the neighbors.
که دیگران باید در امور ما مداخله نکنند و ما در امور دیگران مداخله نمی‌کنیم.
I want to let them that the others should not interfere in our internal affairs, and we won't interfere in others' internal affairs.
بزرگ اقتصادی و نظامی منطقه هزینه آن می شود منطقه را از آن نجات دهد. دولت مستقل آینده افغانستان بدون اندک معامله‌گری بر ارزش‌های دینی و ملی خود نقش ستودنی را در آوردن صلح و ثبات در منطقه خواهد داشت.
The Islamic government will have a great role for the peace of the entire region.
جهت مسئول و متعهد بار دوش منطقه نخواهد بود و نه هم بازیچه و ملعبه دیگران قرار خواهد گرفت.
No one will be harmed from our land. I want to ensure everyone.
وفادار و پابرجا بر همه تعهدات منطقوی و بین المللی خود خواهد ماند.
Afghanistan is tainted with all the promises they have done to the regional countries or in international community.
مسئله اقتصاد است. چون الحمدلله مسئله امنیت اکنون با آمدن امارت اسلامی افغانستان در شهر کابل و سایر شهرها از سر فهرست به فهرست های بسیار پایین
Another problem is economical crisis, which is on everyone's mouth. The security issue is entirely false.
That is an ongoing press conference by the Taliban following the complete U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Among the speakers were Shahabuddin Dilawar, the Taliban Qatar's political office member, and Enamala Samangani, member of the Media Commission. Well, the Taliban have laid out their plans for rebuilding Afghanistan after the withdrawal of U.S. forces and allies after 20 years. The Taliban have also said they do not want interference from other countries and pledged to maintain mutual respect and good relations with its neighbors. Our coverage of Afghanistan continues now from Beijing, but from me and the team here in Nairobi, that is it from us. Goodbye.